Crew management and scaling are two topics that tend to bleed into each other, as an increase in ship size causes a lot of people to neglect crew optimization and travel time, so the crew becomes a bottleneck for the ship's power. In today's guide, we will cover the general crew management with some typical archetypes of crew roles, placement, and how to make bigger ships manageable even when modules are spread far apart. Feel free to skip to your relevant topics and let's get started. Why is crew management relevant? While your crew is able to do everything, it is often way less efficient to let your crew do whatever is currently available. It often results in long travel times and utter chaos. Systems don't have enough operators, or Jimmy thinks supplying the steel smelter with iron is more important than reloading your guns. Even worse, when a crew member gets the task to extinguish fire, but unfortunately he's a deck cannon operator and therefore the entire gun shuts down, as long as he doesn't get replaced. Not only is all of that a huge detriment to our ship in general, but constantly losing engine power and drifting all over the place is infuriating after 2 minutes. We don't want any of that, so instead we give clear orders via the crew manager. General crew behavior is connected to priorities and assignments. We will start with priorities. Whoever played a management game will feel right at home. For everybody else, you have a huge list with all the different jobs that your crew members can fulfill. You can set certain priorities in order for your crew members to focus on a task and only go to lower priority tasks once the main task is complete. This way you can tell your crew to first get all the minerals and only then start to put them into the refineries. Or extinguish the fire before you start to load the cannon. In practice, we can, for example, tell the gunners to always stay on the cannon, the loaders will never stop to load the cannons, and the suppliers will send 1 or 2 people away to extinguish the fire if there is one. This way the guns stay operable for a longer while. What is also important is that you shouldn't shy away from disabling jobs for certain crew members. Because if they don't have anything to do, they will operate guns or cockpits that normally have dedicated crew. They get replaced once people show up that have a higher priority, but if you quickly inspect your ship, you will most likely just see that the station works and don't realize that you lost a few crew members last fight, and now red shirts are filling up your cannons. Differentiating between operators and suppliers is also useful, as operators usually don't leave their station, meaning that you can place their crew quarters anywhere on the ship and the travel time becomes irrelevant, thus freeing up space for suppliers where they are needed most. The other option is to work with assignments. The way Cosmoteer works is that assignments basically increase the priority of the crew by 10 points and also lock them into that workplace. In other words, people assigned to the workplace will do the job even if other crew members outside of the assignment have a higher priority for that task. It's also relevant to lock your crew in place. They won't do anything outside of their working area with a few exceptions. They will still walk to the closest power source, ammo storage, or fire extinguisher, even if it's not assigned. However, you can override this behavior by using supply chains. This is something you have to keep in mind if you decide to isolate compartments by making them only accessible via hatch. Your assigned crew will jump outside if the power source or nearest fire extinguisher is not within that compartment. Non-assigned crew will also try to help out if the assigned station needs more crew than is currently available. So if you decide to build with compartments, always use assignments on all crew quarters and make all compartments self-sufficient. Otherwise, your crew will randomly jump ship. General archetypes can be made in 2 ways, the lazy variant and the more tedious but more redundant one. The lazy variant basically just divides the red shirts into operators and non-operators. As long as you have enough operators to man all stations, they will work. The non-operators can either just act as a regular red shirt, or you specify them to more critical systems so that red shirts that are close to the cannons or engines will focus on them first. Just with these 2 roles and assignments you will already feel an increase in efficiency. The better alternative is to make different crew roles for every kind of specialization. This makes your systems more redundant, as one station can be assigned to multiple crew quarters of different roles. An example would be a deck cannon where factory suppliers would help the loaders if the factory is full, since the loaders are too slow, but as soon as the factory needs something they switch again to supplying it. Another one would be that only the least important role within a working space extinguishes fires. Like the example earlier with the cannons again. Let's talk about placement and movement. Unless your crew has something to do, they will wait in their quarters on standby. So you either want them close to their workspace or relevant structures. Ask yourself, what does the guy need to fulfill his task? Because they only leave their barracks with a certain intention. If your guy operates shields or engines, then it makes sense to put him close to a reactor, as he will always get a battery whenever he leaves. If it's a loader, place him near your ammo storages so he can instantly grab a few bullets on his way to the cannon. If they supply point defense systems, put them next to the capacitor. No need for detours. Operators can be placed everywhere as they turn their workplace into their new home anyway. Movement bleeds a bit into scaling. No matter how many men you have under your command, if they don't reach their destination in time, your systems will turn off. That's a problem that often happens with bigger ships where short travel distances are just not possible anymore without plastering it in small scattered reactors. So instead of trying to decrease the distance, we increase the speed. If you let your crew move through anything that isn't a corridor, they will only move at half speed. Corridors provide 100% and walkways even double it as long as they go into the correct direction. 75% if it's a 90-degree angle and 25% if it's against the direction. These setups have roughly the same efficiency. This way you can even make big ships with very few reactors and still supply all systems reliably. Also keep in mind that the crew has to walk around the reactor. But how do we scale ships properly? You have to decide on a few things. Either you first make a rough draft of your ship's shape and fill in the space, or you prioritize the modules that you want and build your ship around that. Also, do you want to build a ship from scratch in creative mode and work towards that ship in career? Or do you let your starter ship organically grow? In all of these cases, it's best to build the ship one module at a time and copy-paste those modules. Keep track of how many operators you need for the modules and do the math for the supply, both in terms of ammo but also power. In the case of ballistic modules, you should also include the storage and adjacent crew quarters of relevant crew. Let's say I want to build a Deckgunbrawler from scratch. I simply import the deck guns that I built in the previous video and I know that it needs 20 crew members. I place it down 7 times where I want it and I like the missile array on the Polaris, so I'm going to borrow it. Now I have all my weapons arranged and I want my thrust. I only need forward and I want a lot of power. So I will take 8 engine rooms and place a large reactor like an X in the middle. The engines plus the engine room have a total capacity of 22 energy divided by 3 because of the triple charge of the large reactor. It's a maximum of 8 crew members. However, since I will only use 1.9 power per second, 6 crew plus 2 operators are enough. We also need command points, and since I want the center of my ship to look like a central hub, we will use 2 control rooms. Now we will connect everything with 2 tile-wide corridors and walkways in all directions and fill the rest with armor. Lastly, we assign crew roles and set a few supply chains. And just like that, we build a 1.5 million credit ship in under an hour that is able to compete with ships of similar value or even slightly higher. However, if you want to expand your starter ship, it's almost easier. But you need to accept that the delete tool will become your best friend. You can keep the general feeling and shape of the ship, but certain limitations that you have on a small ship are devastating for larger vessels. You will need to cut certain parts to make room for bigger walkways. You will replace a lot of perfectly working modules with bigger alternatives, or you will need to copy-paste them in bigger numbers. All while keeping track of the modules and their needs individually. It's basically like building a lot of smaller ships and gluing them together. In essence, optimal ship scaling comes down to 2 factors: optimizing individual areas of your ship on their own and decrease travel time by increasing movement speed. Last few infos that are more nice to know. If your crew quarter gets destroyed, your crew will keep their original role if there are no other empty barracks on your ship. Otherwise they will fill that barrack and take its role. Doesn't sound too bad until gunners switch to non-operating red shirts and leave their cannons. So only build as many barracks as you actually need in order to prevent crew from switching roles. The recommended crew is borderline useless. It might be a good point of reference if you exclusively use red shirts, but other than that you can ignore it. If you have less than 50%, however, you might run into some trouble depending on the ship, but it's certainly possible. 60 to 80% of the recommended crew size is usually what I run with, but at the end of the day you have to test it yourself manually. And if you want an easier time tracking your crew, you can mark them. Also, your factories only count into your recommended crew size if it's a facility that produces ammo. So steel smelters or coil factories don't count, but HE factories for example do. No matter if it's shields, lasers or anything else that needs power. Divide its capacity by the charge size of the closest reactor. That's the maximum number of crew you can use for that system. Everything above that is wasted as the AI doesn't start to preemptively carry power to a system that doesn't need it right this second. If a number of crew doesn't cut it, you might need to optimize the movement. Don't remove conveyors in front of doors. Most of the time your crew will come from the correct direction and therefore has a 200% on half the tile and 75% on the half tile that leads through the door. That's still a profit in comparison to 100% for the entire tile. Last is probably something that you don't want to hear. No matter how good your optimization is, sometimes, especially in career, your ship will outscale your maximum crew. In that case, you should start to streamline your ship instead of increasing its size. Replace the 2 large cannons with a deck cannon. Integrate engine rooms. Replace corridors with 2 tile-wide walkways. The crew limit exists to ensure that you continue to have a challenge instead of steamrolling after the first system. That was the last major topic that was left for me to cover. You now know everything there is to know about all 3 weapon types, how to travel fast, how to be self-sufficient, how to defend yourself, and also how to properly manage your crew and scale into the late game. I hope that the basic guide series fulfilled its purpose. I will definitely stick around and make a few smaller projects about Cosmoteer every now and then. But those of you who saw me on Discord might have noticed that I was playing a lot of different games these past few days. So maybe I try myself at a different kind of video and game next time. But for now I'm eagerly awaiting the next content update to cover on Cosmoteer. Good luck on your next voyage, Captain. I'm off to my own.
Hello and welcome aboard your Drake interplanetary craft. Your systems are online.